Music in my household has been really interesting because my parents for a long time didn't really let me listen to like pop music. I went to a school in Pittsburgh where I was kind of like the only brown kid, and that was kind of like not the best situation, I guess.
Yeah.
I would email promoters in New York City like at Webster Hall, like, hey, can I like open for this guy? Like he's coming. It's so funny because a lot of people's gut reactions on Twitter these days, it's like, you know, you're a musician, you need to separate yourself from politics, you shouldn't be vocal about things, just make it about the music. I try not to make the Twitter all that because I know it can be tiring, because even I get tired of it too. You know, like I follow so many people who talk about race on a daily basis, and I get fatigued about it. I don't think I could live with myself if I didn't stand up and say something, or just like speak about like what I believe in. And I think at the end of the day, I would much rather be remembered for speaking about what I believe in over the music.
Hi, this is Lauren Engel of Sidewalk Talk. I'm here with Jai Wolf.
Yo.
So I was just thinking, was the first time you met the Hotel Garuda show, or did we meet before that?
I think it was the Hotel Garuda show.
Yeah.
It was 2014? Yeah, 2014.
Yeah, I'll put a picture here.
Yeah, that was the year that I started Jai Wolf, and also the same year Hotel Garuda started Hotel Garuda, and then they played New York for the first time at Slake. They were playing with Tropicool. I remember that. And it was a really fun night. That was
is that Thomas Jack? I think it might have been.
Wait. There were two shows they played in New York City. There was one. So you're not at the Slake one?
No, that was before my time. That was before I moved to New York.
Okay. So yeah, that's when they opened. Okay, so they opened for Thomas Jack at Webster Hall, and that's when we first met, I guess. Yeah.
That's crazy.
We definitely met before Webster Hall because we were hanging out that summer. Webster Hall was like
you're right.
Like August or September. It was like later in the year. I met all those guys in 2014.
Yeah,
Chris,
crazy.
Ayo, RoboKid, Moving Castle, we're all on the East Coast.
Yeah,
it was all East Coast
East
boys.
Coast. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were actually born in Bangladesh, right?
Yeah.
And all your family's still there except for your parents?
Yeah, so like my entire family is out there. My dad came to the States when I was like a year old, like 92, and then me and my mom came, and we were supposed to move back.
Oh, okay.
But we ended up staying. It was like, all right, we'll stay for a couple weeks. Couple weeks turned into, all right, until my dad gets his degree, and then that turned into.
Oh wait, what was he? So he came here for school, like initially?
Yeah. He came to get his PhD in physics.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, he's super smart guy,
Wow.
super sciencey. And my mom, she came and got her master's in physics too. So
that's so cute.
Yeah, they love science.
Wow. What are they doing now?
They're medical physicists, so they work with like radiation therapy for cancer patients.
That's
and stuff
so
like that.
impressive, especially like moving all the way to the U.S. and like.
Yeah.
I bet they got like some really good like visas and or like scholarships.
Yeah, they it's so competitive. It's crazy. Like I think about how immigrant parents, like how they come here and like, I mean, just kind of the fact that coming from Bangladesh, you have to be like the smartest of the smarts.
Yeah.
You know? And like over there, like the ranking system is huge, like being number one in your class and all that stuff. And it's really because like if you're not, like you're just gonna be stuck there, you know? Which, like it's a third world country, and like you can have a decent life out there, but like if you wanna get out, like you have to be at the top of your class, because America, they're looking for like the best of the best, you know? So. Yeah, my dad he was really good at physics.
Damn.
Yeah.
And in the house, were they playing more like classical, like Indian, Bangladeshi music, right?
Yeah, so like, you know, I was listening to a lot of like Bengali classical records, Indian classical records, Ravi Shankar and stuff like that. And that was kind of like what played in my house, like, you know, duck down. Just like all day. So I was listening to a lot of that.
Yeah. And you started violin like pretty young, like at 5, right?
Yeah, so the story is apparently we went to a farmer's market, and there was like a girl playing the violin, and I asked my parents like, oh, I want to learn how to play. I remember the girl, I don't remember asking. But I started lessons when I was 5, and pretty much played like seriously up until like high school, so like 18.
Yeah.
And then college, I kind of like, I don't want to say I gave it up, but it just like became not at the forefront of my life. But for a really long time, I was like a very
you were playing the like New York State
stuff.
stuff,
all state, and like it's funny, like me and Andrew talked about this too, because he used to play violin. I was like New York all-state violinist, like all that stuff, like competitive. Like we had something called NISMA, which is like New York State something association. It's like a music, like you prepare a piece and they judge you, and it was such that like it's different district to district, and it's how they select like a couple of kids to become all-state members. And so our district in New York was so competitive that you had to get 100 to be selected.
Damn.
That's like.
Do you remember your favorite composers back in the day?
Yeah, I really like Vivaldi and Mozart. I think those two are my favorite. I used to listen to like Four Seasons all the time. Summer, like Movement 3 or something like that. Our school district was so competitive that like you had to get 100. And I remember my first year when I moved to New York, I got like a 99, and I wasn't bummed about it. I was like, cool, like I'm not gonna be all county, it's not a big deal, but like a 99 is a good score. And like I remember like my friend, she was like, "You're not upset by that?" Because like she got a 99 too, and she was like on the verge of tears, I think.
Wow.
But it was one of those things where like a 99, a 98, a 97 is considered like, oh, you f***ed up. But you can just get like one note wrong, and like that's your score, you know. But I got like 99 my first year, I got 100 the second year, and like my sophomore year, and that was like when I got all-state. And then my junior year, I got like a 97, and I was like,
crazy.
I don't really care. Like I already got all-state once, I didn't have to get it twice.
But when your parents first moved here, was it to Carbondale, like Southern Illinois?
Yeah, so I lived in Southern Illinois for like 7 years, from like 92 to 98. Very rural. Like our field trips in kindergarten would be to like farms and stuff.
Why did your parents decide to move there? Was it for their jobs there?
No, it was the college that my dad went to. So he went to Southern Illinois University.
Yeah.
And that's the physics program he got accepted to.
Oh. Yeah. Where do you think that you got even your like creative or like musical skill set from? Are your parents actually creative?
Yeah, actually that's a really good question. My dad, he loves photography. So like it's his like side hobby / passion. So like he'll turn our bathroom into like a green room. Not a green room. Oh my god, I said green room. That's how like dark room.
Yeah.
Turns your bathroom into a green room.
Artist.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. No, dark room, and he like develops photos. He's very anti-digital, so he's like, because I asked him one day, I was like, why don't you like digital cameras? Like, you get the pictures immediately, you know? And then he's like, man, digital cameras it makes everyone a photographer. It's too easy, you know? He's like, he's been painstakingly like developed film for like years.
Wow.
His whole life, like, bringing it to Walmart and all that stuff, and now he'll develop it himself, like, in the dark room. So he likes the process, I think. Mm-hmm. I get it. It's like, it's the purest kind of view of photography.
Yeah.
But he's been doing it his whole life. His photographs are beautiful, man. Wow. He's so good at what he does. He has like a medium format camera.
Yeah.
There's like those big like, I'm not really sure like how to like really explain what it is, but it's like a fancy old
like
camera.
Those Hasselblad maybe.
Yeah. He's a total like geek for that stuff.
Damn. How about your mom?
My mom, she can play something called slide guitar, which is like, it's like Hawaiian style guitar. I'm not really sure. She calls it slide guitar. It's like you kind of set it on your lap and you put like a metal thing around your finger and you kind of like slide your fingers and pluck it.
Yeah.
And she could play like harmonium, which is basically like an Indian piano. It's like an accordion, like piano looking hybrid thing. It's about like 2 octaves, and you have to like, it has bellows like an accordion.
Yeah.
So you bellow it and then you play it. It's like very it's a traditional instrument basically, but she knows how to play that. So like she has some music in her. She could like sing and all that stuff.
Oh wow.
So the Bengali culture is very arts oriented. It's kind of really deeply ingrained in our roots. Like there's this really famous poet, Rabindranath Tagore. He's like a Nobel laureate and everything. He's written many poems, and a lot of those poems have been turned into songs. And so those traditional songs have been sung for like 100 years basically.
Damn, that's
so
so
like
cool.
when there's like get-togethers and stuff like that, like the families will sing the songs, and it's very traditional and still very much in the core of like Bengali family culture, I guess. Yeah.
Did your friends show you initially Panic at the Disco and Blink-182, or how did you find that stuff yourself?
So I like music in my household has been really interesting because my parents for a long time didn't really let me listen to like pop music.
Oh really? Because of the swear?
Yeah, profanity and drug use and all that stuff. And my mom was always afraid of like just that type of assimilation into America, you know? And my parents, like, because they're really smart, they're just like hyper aware of like culture.
They read everything.
They know everything that's going on, and like so they're always very careful. Like, oh, you can't play violent video games and stuff like that. Like, my parents aren't like that anymore. They're super Americanized now.
Yeah.
But there was a time when like I would come home and I would watch MTV and like music videos and all that stuff, and my mom like blocked it for 2 years. I remember. Like senior year, I'm like, Mom, I'm like 17. Like, come on, let me watch this. But like I still remember in 8th grade I would take like a Sony Walkman radio and like stay up till 4 a.m. listening to like the pop radio station when I lived in Pittsburgh, and just like I had friends who listened to it, so when we would go to like their houses, they would show me like Ludacris and 50 Cent and like all those guys from the mid 2000s. So I knew who they were, and I was like, yo, like some of this stuff is super catchy. Like I still remember listening to like, this is really lame, but like Ludacris Too Fast Too Furious from the Too Fast Too Furious soundtrack. But like that song really caught my ear. Overnight Celebrity by Twista and Kanye West. Candy Shop by 50 Cent. Just the sounds in it. I was like, yo, like there's a really cool groove and really cool melody, and like that was kind of the first time pop music and music that wasn't classical or traditional caught my ear. But from there it was just like, you know, listening to the radio, just learning about pop music for the first time. And in terms of like the Panic at the Disco stuff, like I first got into like Fall Out Boy. And like I was obsessed with them. Like I heard Sugar We're Going Down and I hated it at first because I was like, what is he saying? Like this sounds mad annoying. But it was one of those things where when I heard it like 100 times on the radio, I was like, wait, I really like this.
Yeah.
Dug into their discography, like downloaded everything. And then that just opened the door to like pop punk and all that other stuff, you know, Panic at the Disco, Paramore, Blink-182.
Yeah. Was that around the same time that you picked up a guitar?
Yeah, I picked up guitar in high school because like I have great respect for classical music, but at some point I was like, performing music written 100 years ago wasn't really satisfying for me. So I was like, all right, I want to like play more modern music or start writing my own music. So I picked up guitar so I could learn how to play like Green Day and Fall Out Boy and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how that started. There's a cat right there.
How would you describe yourself back then growing up?
I was really like dorky for sure. Like I think my parents told me that I was like super social when I was like younger. Like I think most kids are, you know. Then I think in middle school like destroys everyone. I feel it's just like not a good time for anybody, and like I feel like that definitely was like had an effect on who I was back then. And like I went to a school in Pittsburgh where I was kind of like the only brown kid, and that was kind of like not the best situation, I guess.
Yeah.
But coming to New York, it was great because it was so multicultural and diverse, and like going to a school where like there's 50% of an Asian population, I was like, oh, this is what the world should be like, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's great that everyone gets along and doesn't really like have any like weird prejudices or anything like that.
Yeah.
In the early 2000s, like that was like right after 9/11, so it's still kind of like fresh, you know?
Yeah.
So, but I think it's a lot better now.
Yeah.
At least in like New York, you know. I don't know about other places, but yeah, I was really shy and like dorky and just really like not really like, I don't know. Everyone was like that in middle school, I feel.
Yeah. How were you dealing with like not being able to fit in or like find similar people around you?
I definitely, like, music was definitely, like, there for me, and, like, that's what I, like, put my mind to. So, like, it was funny because in middle school I didn't really earn the respect of my peers until, like, they noticed I was really good at violin, and, like, in orchestra I was, like, concert master, like, first chair and everything, and, like, then the kids were, like, you know, because, like, as kids get older, they start to realize that, like, being into something that's not mainstream, like, having a passion for something is actually cool, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think, like, by then I was, like, starting to, like, oh, like, he's the violin kid, like, that's dope, like, that's not weird or, like, dorky or anything like that, that's, like, that's cool. But then I moved right after that, so I had to, like, start over basically.
Yeah.
But it was great. I fit in New York really well, and I feel like I don't know, I felt more comfortable, you know?
What were your favorite subjects back in high school?
Favorite subjects in high school? I was a math and science guy for, like, a really long time. Like,
so kind of like your parents.
Dude, because, like, for me it was, like, you know, violin and, like, science were kind of my main things. So, like, for a long time I was kind of following in their footsteps, and, like, you know, there was a big emphasis on being good at math and science in my house. Like, my mom over the summers would teach me, like, math and all that stuff, and, like, try to get me ahead and put me in honors classes, like, all those things.
Yeah, you did all the AP stuff.
Dude, our school was so competitive. Like,
damn.
I took mad AP classes, but I think at some point, like, I started to not care because I was so, like, addicted to, like, writing music that, like, I would slack off in school. I slacked off in college. Like, I started to not really care about academics, you know, at some point.
You were starting off when you did your own stuff, more of the synth stuff, right?
Yeah, like, my personal music that I was writing.
Yeah, that was, like, toward, like, senior year of high school.
Yeah, it was, like, a lot of synth-based music. Like, Owl City was kind of the thing. I remember Fireflies. Like, it's so funny how Fireflies is a meme now. But back then it was like, oh, this song, I love it, I get it. Like, I like what he was doing, and I've always been drawn towards anything with, like, an electronic influence. I feel like back then, like, EDM in high school wasn't really a thing, you know? Like, the kids who listened to Tiesto were like, oh, wow, you like techno music? Like, there was, like, no one who listened to that stuff.
Actually, how did you find that stuff yourself? Like, bridging from, like, the rock and rap to, like, the more electronic.
As EDM was getting big in college, like, people started going to shows and stuff, and the first names that would pop up are, like, Avicii, Afrojack, and, like, those guys. And I didn't really like any of it. I was like, this is, like, not, like, interesting or catchy to my ear in any way. But the first things that I enjoyed from EDM were, like, Skrillex and Flux Pavilion, because there was kind of an edge to it, and it really reminded me of, like, rock music for some reason. Just kind of like the way the dubstep breakdown works, and the energy, and something about it was really, like, captivating. And Skrillex comes from, like, a rock background, you know, so you could hear it in the music. And just something about that was way more interesting to me than, like, house music. Yeah. But the first house person that I was into was Alesso, because just something about the melodies that he would write. Yeah.
Actually, back then, did it ever occur to you to join a band?
Yeah.
Were you in one?
Kind of. Like, I think I, like, was one of the few people in my high school that I knew that, like, liked the music that I was listening to, so I couldn't ever really find, like, other band members to make the music that I wanted to make. Yeah. Which led me to write all the parts myself, and that's eventually how I transitioned into, like, being a producer or whatever. But, like, my senior year, my friend, who I kind of knew, like, my friend was like, hey, like, do you want to just, like, perform at the rock show with me? You could play, like, violin and guitar. And I was like, yeah, that sounds fun. Like, what, like, songs do you want to do? So we just did a couple, like, his songs. So it was very, like, acoustic, folky type music. Yeah. We did, like, a John Mayer cover. And then we did, like, what's it called? We did a Bob Marley cover. We did No Woman, No Cry. Oh. And my buddy Kenny, who played trumpet, actually, like, became my manager, like, many years later. Oh, really yeah. Funny. But, yeah, it was like a 5-piece. It was like 3 guitar players, which feels like a lot. It was like 2 acoustic guitar players. Then I was playing electric. Kenny was on trumpet, and then we had another guy on bass. We only played.
Do you have a name?
Yeah, it was Thanks for the Lemonade. That was the name. It's just really random name. But we played only 2 shows in high school. It was like the rock show, and then we played like there'd be like an annual rock show where they would have bands from the school like play basically.
Yeah.
And then we played like one other show at the end of the year, and then we called it quits after that. Yeah.
And then was No Pets Allowed your first solo moniker?
The music that I was writing that was super synth influenced was my first project, so that was under my own name. I've deleted all that off the internet. It does not exist.
Actually,
It's really bad. But then when I was doing remixes, I started as Young GB.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like a joke, and I like would find random acapellas and just kind of like remix them or like put them into mashups. I would put like Kanye West on top of like a Kesha song or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It was just like random stuff like that. And then I was like, oh, I want to change my name. Let me be No Pets Allowed.
Yeah.
It was even more of a jokey name. But yeah, No Pets Allowed was kind of a thing for a hot minute. It was like 2011 to 2014, I guess.
Yeah.
But that was just where I did all the EDM stuff. So remixes, mashups, DJing, like that was like the first attempt, I guess. Yeah.
Actually, why did you decide to have a moniker? Why couldn't you just go by Sajid?
The way I saw it was like if I ever used my own name, it would have to be like music that like would represent me in the purest way.
Oh.
You know? So
But does that make music you make not now?
no, it does. But I also thought that like Sajid wasn't the most like marketable name, I guess. I don't know. I just like it could have worked, I don't know, but I just didn't think that Sajid was like a name I could use for like electronic music.
Yeah.
And I mean the music I write now, obviously under Jai Wolf, I feel very strongly about. But I feel like if I could like sing or if I could like be an artist in that manner, I would totally use my own name.
Yeah.
Like if I was like a rapper or something, I would totally go by Sajid or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just didn't think it was a fitting name for an electronic project. I don't know.
And for NYU, you study marketing? Or?
Yeah, I did marketing, communications, and I took a bunch of music classes too.
Yeah.
I was in the school where you could like create your own major, so like I was able to take classes in like the different schools.
You did like an EDM class, right?
Yeah, I did. My senior year in 2013, they offered a class called Business of EDM, and it was really interesting. It was just like kind of the history of dance music and just learning about like Detroit and techno and all that stuff.
Yeah.
To kind of like the industry today. And we had some cool guest speakers. We had like the founder of Hype Machine came to speak to us, and we were supposed to have A-Track come in once, but it was raining that day.
No.
We couldn't make it. But we got Nick Catchdubs instead.
Oh,
and he's
nice.
the co-founder of Fool's Gold with A-Track, and that was really cool. We had someone from Billboard come in. I think it was the woman who wrote that really big cover story about either Swedish House Mafia or like there was this one like cover where it was like Skrillex, Diplo, and A-Track because they were kind of the 3 like big label heads.
Yeah.
You know, and they still are. I can't remember which one. I think it was Swedish House Mafia, but she wrote like this big profile about them because they were having a massive year that year.
Oh.
But yeah, we had some cool guest speakers and just like it was an informative class.
Yeah.
And, like just interesting for its time. It was very timely.
Actually, why did you decide to study marketing if you're good at like math and science?
Oh yeah. So like, I honestly just lost interest at some point. It felt very like monotonous, I guess. I liked science a lot, but at some point I was like, I don't think I could do this. Like I wanted to be a doctor at some point.
Oh wow.
Like when I was studying in high school and stuff, I was like, yeah, like I think I could do it. But I think it was one of those things where like all your friends wanted to be a doctor and like
Probably your parents wanted you.
Parents and like a stable job and like you like science, it makes sense. But I think like it was stressful. I found science classes to be more like just I don't know, stressful and like just took a lot of memorization and I just not the learning style that I was like really into.
Yeah.
Or just like I lost interest basically.
What about marketing made you want to study it?
That's a weird question. I don't think I have an answer for that. But I just think that communication and like media classes in general I found very interesting, and I think I just wanted to work, like before I decided to fully pursue music, I was like, yeah, maybe I could work in like the music business. So I took a lot of like classes that revolved around like record labels and stuff like that. So I was like, yeah, like marketing makes sense, communications makes sense, media classes make sense. I was like, oh, I feel like these kind of three areas are like the skills needed if you wanted to work in the music industry, I guess. That was kind of like my initial plan before I like was like, well, I actually want to pursue music, you know?
Yeah. And then at what point did your music start to gain momentum? Was it like in sophomore year or closer to like senior year?
Way after that.
Oh, so like after you graduated?
Yeah, it was because No Pets Allowed was pretty much all throughout college. So that was like, I wouldn't necessarily say that was getting momentum. It got like a little bit of attention, but no way where I could start like touring or even opening, to be honest. I would email promoters in New York City, like at Webster Hall, like, hey, can I like open for this guy? Like he's coming, like, you know, these are my stats. Like I got tracks and like they do well on SoundCloud. Which is funny because relatively compared to now, they're nothing really. But it was like when I started Gyrewolf, it was I just finished school, but I would say Gyrewolf took about a year or two before it was really like picking up steam. So I would say like 2 years removed from college or something like that.
Were you also sending stuff out with Gyrewolf at the very beginning?
I'm trying to remember. Maybe the first few shows, because I'm trying to remember what 2014 was like. I mean, by then I had management, so I wasn't like doing it. I gotta like duck down so I don't get hit in the face. We did a couple of shows in New York, but I think by then, like, because after Skrillex like gave the cosign and everything, people would start booking me on the East Coast. So the DC Crew and all those guys.
Yeah.
Like
so before Skrillex, you didn't really even have much buzz.
Yeah, not at all. Yeah, that was just like because it was starting over basically. Because that Skrillex track was the third track I released as Gyrewolf. So there's no buzz from like the first two. Yeah.
How long after did you graduate did Skrillex like start putting it on?
It was like a month or two after I graduated.
Oh wow, so like kind of right after, you didn't even need to find like another job.
Right. Well, what happened was I was supposed to graduate 2013, but because I was slacking so hard, I didn't graduate until 2014.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because I was missing credits or anything, so I didn't have to take classes for that extra year. I just had to do like a final project, because in the create your own major school, you just had to like do this like 3-hour presentation in front of your like advisor and a couple of professors. So that's just something I like delayed for a full year. So when I finally did that in 2014, I had launched Gyrewolf, graduated in May, put the track out June 1st, and then the Skrillex cosign was like at the end of June when he played like Glastonbury, and he started like playing it out at shows and stuff.
Yeah.
So I moved back home in 2013 because I was just like, well, I'm just going to work on music and try to finish school.
Was that in Roslyn? Or?
Yeah, in Roslyn, yeah. So I just like moved back with my parents.
And then kind of after that song, did you have you had kind of a few other remixes at that point that you were able to tour off of, right?
Yeah, so it was the Skrillex remix, and then like, it was interesting because all the momentum that was happening was very, like one thing kept leading to the next thing.
Yeah.
So like, I did a remix on Atlantic for like Melody Martinez, and like I was like charting on Hype M, and it's funny because that was the summer ODESZA was also like starting to put out singles for their album In Return.
Oh.
So they were like charting on Hype Machine, and I think they listened to one of my songs, and that's how we started like talking. I had never even heard of ODESZA at that point. They were just like, oh, this is a random electronic duo, and they were so tiny back then. They were like, they're doing like small shows, and like we were just like emailing back and forth, and they seemed like really cool dudes. So that's how I got to do a remix for them. That led to someone from like Alesso's team being like, hey, can you do an Alesso remix? The Alesso manager managed Dirty South, so they were like, can you do a Dirty South remix?
Oh.
And it just like, it was one after another, you know? You to get distracted in the electronic world by continuously putting out remixes or bootlegs, you know? Because you're not developing a true identity until you put out original content. So like, I think a lot of producers forget that. So at some point I was like, all right, we gotta like slow down on the remixes and start like really focusing on original music. And that's how we like definitely transitioned into like, I guess the second chapter of like Jai Wolf, which is like the Indian summer era and all that stuff.
And the Indian summer you didn't even think of putting out initially, right? Like you didn't even super like it.
Yeah, that's so funny. I thought it was a weird song. I was like, this is a weird song, no one's gonna like it. And you know, we sent it to ODESZA for their record label and they really liked it and they wanted to put it out. And I was like, this song's not gonna do well at all. And like, I'd made it so quickly too because I kind of had a deadline, so I made it.
Oh damn!
I made it in like a week.
That's crazy.
And just, I don't know, I didn't think it was gonna be like popular or anything like that, but yeah.
Yeah, and then after like the hype of the song, it kind of got like pressure to like continue that success, right?
Yeah, it's so interesting how the song kept getting more life breathed into it, basically, because it just kept appearing in
so many commercials.
A lot of commercials, a lot of TV shows, and a lot of movies. So it just kept like appearing month after month, year after year. So, you know, something that is old to someone who listens to music, you know, constantly and is on top of things, it's an old song. But if you're not paying attention to electronic music, you might not have heard of it. So the discovery, I don't know how I'm trying to think of like an analogy, but like it was being discovered continuously, basically. Because like if you really think about it, like there's 7 billion people on the planet, you know, not everyone has heard the song. So even 2 years later, it was like this year it was getting the most streams on Spotify than it had ever gotten, like daily streams.
Yeah.
So that means its peak popularity was 2 years after the release.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What was the decision to put out the music video so long after?
Honestly, budget. It's just like when you're starting out, like you don't have the resources or the time or just like the money to make a music video. And like I've always been passionate about music videos. Like as I said earlier, I would come home from school and I'd watch MTV and like I loved the era of where like there were dope music videos. And I think that just because of how the industry has changed and because, you know, TRL doesn't really exist and there's no monetary advantage of releasing a music video and seeing returns unless you're like Justin Bieber and you're getting like 1 billion plays on your video. Like the label is not going to see money back. So like a lot of times record labels are like unwilling to spend money or put like time into creating a music video. So if you look in the electronic world, there's a complete lack in music videos, in my opinion, unless you're like signed to a major label or like just like you really have to put in effort, you know. But I think that's such a shame because there's a lot of incredible music out there that I think could be accompanied by a really cool concept visually. And I think the pairing of audio and video is like just a really cool marriage that I'd like to see more of. So us doing the video 2 years later like was really because we couldn't do it that first year.
Actually, for all that and like your branding, what kind of like artists kind of influence all that?
I would say my go-to answer is always Kanye West, but there's definitely like a bunch of people. I just think that like obviously none of my music sounds like Kanye West, but the way he approaches everything from the album art to stage design to even the way he dresses is like so much more than the music, you know what I'm saying? And I love his grand approach to things. Like, you know, for his Yeezus tour, he had like this big mountain, and for like Pablo, he was just on this floating stage, and just like interesting concepts like that to me are like what sets him apart from so many other people. And I just like, I've always wanted to make what I'm doing as Jai Wolf kind of in line with that, where like everything from the music to the show feels like a big or like a grand experience. Almost like you're watching like a I'm trying to find the word. It's just more than a show. That's how I see it. You know, it's more than just music. It's like it's a full experience basically. Because when you go to a Kanye West show, it's like you are seeing an experience. You know, and so that's just I really like his approach to everything artistically. He's just he's a genius at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But Fall Out Boy was kind of like that too. Like I always saw them as kind of like the counterpart to Kanye, people like Kanye and Jay-Z, because even like Pete Wentz, like the bassist, and like watching his interviews, he would be like Jay-Z created this whole culture beyond just the music. You know, it was a clothing brand. It was like a lifestyle basically. If you're listening to Jay-Z or Kanye West, you're eating, breathing, sleeping, like, you know, those artists. And so he was like, I wanted to create that culture for like Fall Out Boy fans where they can like experience it beyond the music. So like he started like a clothing brand, and like he did all these things that were like kind of beyond just music stuff.
Yeah.
So it's always cool seeing your idols being fans of your other idols.
Oh, yeah.
It's really cool.
Have you always been like kind of like on top of the social issues and everything? Was that something that you grew up like? I guess your parents kind of like read a lot of that, so you like grew up with the whole thing.
Right. It's so funny because a lot of people's gut reactions on Twitter these days, it's like, you know, you're a musician, you need to separate yourself from politics, you shouldn't be vocal about things, just make it about the music. And I understand why people might say stuff like that, but I think it's sad. Like, it's sad when people are like, oh, you're an artist, like, what do you know about politics? What do you know about, you know, the issues and all that stuff? And it's like, it wasn't like I was born Jai Wolf, you know, I was a whole person before that. And if you can even, I have like a different Twitter account where like, I was going through it the other day, and I was like, I've always been vocal about this stuff on like Twitter, and it wasn't just like, oh, like, because some people are like, oh, that's just the thing to do now, it's just to be mad about everything, and that's not true. They're legitimate, valid concerns. I just think it's important to speak up about the things that are happening, especially because now it's like some people will say like, oh, it's only bad if you like allow it to affect you, but but like, just the current state of things is like affecting a lot of people, you know, so I think it's important to talk about those things and speak out about it.
How do you pick which issues you want to talk about more?
Well, obviously like race issues are very important to me because of like who I am, and like it makes sense to talk about that. And like, I don't know, not obviously everyone is comfortable with talking about that. Like, for example, everyone right now is talking about net neutrality, and that's like an easy thing to stand up for, and that's cool and all. So not everyone, you know, not everyone's going to be like wanting to talk about race all the time, but I try to not make the Twitter all that, because I know it can be tiring, because even I get tired of it too, you know, like I follow so many people who talk about race on a daily basis, and I get fatigued about it too. Like it's just the unfortunate reality. Some people live it a bit more than I do. Like, I care about it, but it's not something that I need to like constantly be tweeting about, you know.
Yeah.
And especially this year, I've just been reflecting about when it's appropriate to like talk about stuff like that. And like, I get it, you know, there's lines that you can't cross and things that you can't really say on Twitter. And like, you know, not that I don't think I have any like controversial feelings about just the current state of race affairs in America, but like sometimes I need to say something because of something like, you know, the president said or did, and it's like, yo, this is like f***ed up. And like, not saying something, I feel like normalizes it. Like, oh yeah, you know, this is just how it is, you know. But why should we accept that? You know, it's really f***ed up. And like, sometimes I have to like pinch myself. Like, wow, we are living in this reality, you know. And it's sad that it has somehow come to this, you know.
Yeah.
Especially when people try to reason it, or try to like justify it. Like, I don't know. It's like it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to wake up and realize that this is the world that we live in, you know, that it's gotten to this point.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Have you talked to your parents? Like, do they like that you're like speaking out about this type of thing? Like, have you talked to them about like as an artist, and like now you have so much like leverage to share your opinion? And
not really. I mean, I like, you know, my parents, they like follow me on Twitter and Instagram and everything, but I've actually never spoken to them about it. For them, I think it's a little different because, you know, we live in New York and there's not too many problems there, and I feel like for immigrant parents, sometimes at the end of the day, they're just working, you know, they don't really care about the things that are happening beyond that, because they're just there to provide and sustain themselves, especially if you're first generation, because a lot of people don't realize that people come here and like they have to, it's not just like you come here and it's over. You have to come here and you have to sustain yourself, you know?
Yeah.
So oftentimes immigrant parents don't have the time to really like like, you know, they see the stuff that's happening and they care about it, but it's not something that they like are like constantly like worried about. Like, you know, they don't have the time really, you know, to do stuff to do stuff about it.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's really on them. I think it's really on the new generation, the second generation kids, or the kids who are like growing up in America, you know. Let the parents come and provide for them, but I think it's important for the new generation to always like to speak out and step up and stand up and just be active about the things that are happening.
Has it crossed your mind kind of, I guess maybe some like backlash or stuff that might like change your like branding or like your career if you said some of these things, or it doesn't, or you're not like that affected of like what might happen?
I think personally I'm at the point where I'm comfortable with expressing what I need to express, and I don't think it will affect like the way people perceive me. And honestly, like if it does, then like why I can't be bothered by it. Like I'll tell a personal story. Like there's a kid who was a big fan for like 3 or 4 years. You know, like he would tweet me all the time. I recognized like the little picture on Twitter. Like he tweeted me so much, and I was like, oh, it's this kid. Yeah. And one day he was just like, man, you are so toxic and negative. Oh, wow. And he used really, really strong words to describe what I was talking about on Twitter. And this is why sometimes I like second guess it, because it's like, really, like there are people like this who are okay with what's happening in the world and are like defending the president and stuff like that. Like it's messed up. But he was like, I can't be a fan of you anymore because of the way you talk on Twitter. Crazy. And I was like, nothing I've said is controversial, you know, like I don't think I've said anything controversial, and like it was sad to see that. He just seemed so blinded by like, you know, I don't know. It's just sad to see that, you know, but to me it's like if that's how you behave or think, then like I don't really need those people to come to the shows. You know, there's enough good people in the world to support the music, and like if you're gonna be someone who's tolerant of like hatred and stuff like that, like don't come to the shows. It's as easy as that, you know. But I've never like, it's never stopped me from like it doesn't concern me the way it like reflects on my branding or whatever, you know. Like it's funny because I think electronic music is one of those genres where kids are so concerned about their brands, you know. It's not something that like I feel other genre artists like care so much about. I just like I like cringe when I see kids on Twitter talking about branding or content and like being so like open and vocal about stuff like that. It's just like, I don't know, I think sometimes it's kind of corny to talk about it on social media, like, oh, what about my brand or stuff like that. I don't know.
What does love mean to you?
I've only been back to Bangladesh like 4 or 5 times now. I went in 98, 2006, 2014, and this year. So I've been back 4 times. And the one thing I realized when I went back when I was younger, I was really angsty as a teenager because it's like, oh, I don't want to leave America. Like, I don't want to go to a really hot country for 2 weeks and just like, you know, I'd be playing video games in the corner, kind of neglecting my cousins and all that stuff. But like, you know, I never really grew up with aunts and uncles in my life because they're halfway around the world or even grandparents. And so when I would go there and visit, when I went in 2014, I realized like these people like love me because we're family, you know? And it was such a like weird but special feeling, you know, like that to feel that. And not everyone gets that too. I think a lot of people are quick to write off family or quick to like, you know, not everyone has that. Not everyone is lucky to feel love like that. So I felt really blessed. It was one of those things where it's like, man, I don't even see these people so often, but they like love me regardless. And it was such a strange concept, both happy and sad at the same time. You know, happy that these people love me, sad because I don't really ever see them.
Yeah, you know? I saw your like Insta stories, and it's like so cute, like the times that you're like with them.
Oh yeah. Like, so like my grandparents came to America for like 5 months this year, and it was their second time ever in America. First time they came was in 2011. So like I tried to spend as much time as I could. I was always kind of on the road and traveling and touring and all that stuff, but like it's precious, you know. So that's like one love that I like feel like I understood better as I kind of became an adult.
Yeah.
To answer your question.
I love that. Do you think your music has changed from the early songs that you made, like way back?
Man, it's changed a lot. I think I was always distracted by whatever was like popular at the time, you know, like the No Pets Allowed days. I was just making straight up EDM music, and like it was easy to kind of hear something and try to emulate it. And that's like most artists start like that, you know. That's just how you get better at producing, I guess, is like trying to sound like someone else. But eventually the eventual goal for all artists is to come into their own and find their own sound. So that's something that over the past 2 years, from kind of like Indian Summer to Kindred Spirits, I've been trying to find and cultivate. And hopefully the music that follows Kindred Spirits will continue to sort of explore what I want to express musically through my own sounds, I guess. But that's definitely how things have changed from the beginning, you know. At first it was like, oh, how can I sound like Cashmere Cat, because I really like Cashmere Cat, you know. And then SoundCloud is just full of a lot of people trying to sound like other people. Mm-hmm. But again, when you're starting off, that's very common. You just have to learn how to like grow out of that, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you say you've grown as a person since when you started?
I mean, like, I think I got better at writing music. I guess that's one thing. I think when I was younger, it's easy to get caught up in small worlds. So like when you're in high school, you're like in your high school bubble. When you're in like college, you're in your little college bubble. And I think it's important to sometimes broaden your horizons a bit more and try to understand what you're doing in the context of a larger scope of field, you know? Mm-hmm. And because I think when you're living in bubbles, it's really easy to get lost in that bubble and think like your whole life revolves around that bubble, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to kind of like take a step back and look at everything in like the grand scheme of things and just kind of view life like that. I think I've gotten better at that for sure. I try to think about how my music will like be around for a long time, so I try to write in the context of that, you know?
Last question, what do you want to be remembered for?
I just want to like, you know, we live in such a crazy time right now where all this shit is happening, and I just want to like, I don't think I could live with myself if I didn't stand up and say something, or just like speak about like what I believe in. And I think at the end of the day, I would much rather be remembered for speaking about what I believe in over the music, because I don't know, I think that's way more important in the grand scheme of things. Like, obviously being remembered for the music would be great if you know, if the songs lasted a long time and had a legacy. Like creating an album that like is cherished for a long time, that's obviously like the goal of many artists. But I think that just given what's happening right now, I would much rather be remembered for being there and being like, yo, this is messed up and like we need to fix it. And I know those are very general like terms, but like, and not everyone knows the correct solution of how to fix it. But like, I have hope that we can get there one day, and like I want to make sure that like it's not just me, but hopefully I'm able to get other people to think the same way and stand up as well, you know?
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Bye, guys.